Okay, so there you go. Oh,
Okay.
sorry for all of that. Teresa, sorry, you go ahead. You're the
Thank you.
owner.
I just want to introduce you, Teri, to everyone. And Teri is a naturopath, and I have seen her for a number of years with my husband. And unfortunately, I haven't seen her lately. But and anyway, her name is
And I
Teri
still love you.
Jaklin, and she's a naturopath. And actually, she has guided me in a great way to get onto a. I was so happy that there was a naturopath actually that I could access. And anyway, so Teri got me on to healthy eating, which is great. And so I do follow her diet, I have to say, and as best as I can. So,
Okay.
and
Good
anyway,
stuff.
welcome Teri to our group.
Thank you. Good to see you, Teresa. It really is.
Yeah, thank you. You too.
Can you folks see me too?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, good. Okay. So just to build on that, I'm a naturopathic doctor. Since I've seen Teresa last, I've also been a certified functional medicine practitioner, which is a really interesting corner of the mainstream medical model that is changing the way we do medicine. They've taken a look at what's going on and said, you know what, we're fatter and sicker than we've ever been. So we've got to start looking at things differently. And it correlates with our understanding naturopathically of how the body heals. So it's kind of nice to collaborate, if you will, in that medical model. I owned a clinic in Waterdown for 20 years. I recently sold it, and as a result of COVID, sort of seamlessly transitioned to a virtual practice. So I'm now exclusively practicing online, and it allows me to broaden my reach. It allows me to, people don't have to travel so far to see me. And I have multiple sclerosis myself. I was diagnosed with MS in 1985. And I was told at that time to go home and get my affairs in order because there were so many lesions on my brain that they didn't think I was going to make it. So I was a saucy 20-something-year-old with a really bad attitude. And I thought, you're not going to tell me I'm not going to make it. So here I am, 30, whatever that is, 35, 36 years later, still working full time. And it gives me nothing but joy to work with people with MS because we've come a long way, baby. And I want today for you to get from this that everything you think you know about MS has changed in the last 10 to 20 years, everything. And it brings it down to the fact that MS is a completely manageable condition. And that's kind of mind-blowing for a lot of people, especially when you're sitting at home with a lot of symptoms. But there is so much that we can do. It doesn't matter how old you are. It doesn't matter how long you've had MS, and it doesn't matter how advanced your condition is. So personally, I use a scooter right now myself. I had a knee surgery about 5 years ago that brought me to the scooter, but my quality of life is extraordinary and I do everything that I want to do. And I want to say that there is so much more out there for everyone. Okay. So let's see if I can do this properly. There you go. There's the message. That's all you need to know. Everything is changing and MS can.
Sorry, guys. I'm trying to mute everybody, and I muted Teri. Teri, you need to unmute yourself. Unmute yourself, please, dear.
I was going to say my husband will probably want to know your secret formula for muting me. He's been trying to do it for years. Okay, so here's our message. Oops. Oh my goodness. Now, why can't I? Ah, good. Okay, we've got this. So today we're going to talk about how things are changing. Here I am saying everything's changing. Multiple sclerosis can be very manageable. Well, we want to know how. We need to understand what MS is today because the way that science is presenting MS is very, very different than it was when I was diagnosed, or when Teresa was diagnosed, or if anybody who's been diagnosed for more than 10 years, for sure. I'm going to talk about some underlying concepts in MS. I'm going to spend the bulk of my time on what I call the 4 cornerstones, and how you can raise your bar just by developing those 4 cornerstones. And those 4 cornerstones are going to build a nice platform that you can use for the rest of your life to come back to if you fall off the wagon, so to speak, to build onto, you know, whatever type of health decisions you make, you can build it onto the 4 cornerstones and thereby raise your bar. Okay. Oh, for goodness sakes. There we go. So the first thing I want to address is a very, very glaring therapeutic gap that exists today. And that is that the current scientific information that's out there is completely inconsistent with what's being practiced in the medical offices of the doctors that we see. So what happens with a doctor, and this is very well established in the literature, is they practice what they learned in school. If you pay any attention or you talk to your doctor, they don't have time to sit at home and read journals and stay up to date on the latest, greatest thing, never mind implement it. Nobody wants to be the first to do something new in the medical model. So what we've got, and sometimes we think about medicine and science being the same thing, but they are very, very different. Science is always about moving on, moving on, moving on. It's about bigger and better and answering questions and delving deeper in things we don't understand. And medicine is just about applying what I learned in medical school. And that's just a fact. So what's happening today is, first of all, science has taken a gargantuan leap in the last 10 to 20 years. And then the patients like you and me have the capacity to Google. And we can find out all about these new things, and we can take them to our doctors. And a lot of the times, I've run into this with my own patients a lot, is that they actually are more current with the information they have than their doctors do. So there's frustration all around. And you know what? God bless our doctors, because they do what they can do. But you know, you have somebody that's sharp and has got the latest study on something sitting in front of you, and you haven't even had a chance to look at that study. So that's what I call the therapeutic gap. So you need to work that into your process when you're continuing to see these doctors. Oh, good grief. How many? There we go. There we go. So let's start by really, truly understanding MS. And I think when we start talking about MS, we say, oh, it's autoimmune or it's a neurodegenerative disease. Well, what does that really mean? Because there's so much going on in MS. And this is really, truly one of the ugliest slides I have ever created in my 20-something years of public speaking. And I still use it because I can't find a better way to represent this. These are all the things that are contributing to multiple sclerosis. So could be small bowel overgrowth syndrome, inflammation, always, food, diet, and digestion, always, our emotions, our beliefs. It could be chronic infection, and chronic infection always plays a role in that inappropriate immune response. It could be lack of oxygen, heavy metal exposure, oxidative damage from free radicals. I've worked with people, many people with MS who had such severe hormone dysregulation that once we corrected that hormone dysregulation, everything fell in place and their symptoms were remarkably better. So what I want you to get from this slide is there are multiple causative factors that happen with MS. It's not just a single thing. And I want you to think about all of those things and all of the systems in the body, because they all have different, they're all connected to different systems as a web, right? You know how if you tug on one corner of a spider's web, the whole thing moves, right? And the body is like that because nothing happens in just one organ or tissue. Every system is impacted by what's going on in other systems. And, you know, sometimes this is considered crazy thinking by the medical world because they're very focused on a symptom, not a system. But this is definitely what traditional medicines like naturopathic have understood for millennia, and literally millennia. Where you go back to traditional Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, naturopathic medicine is only about 300 years old. But and now, of course, functional medicine is picking up that ball in the medical model and saying, look, we've got to look at this whole picture because it's not just one thing. So what is it? Well, we know it's no single cause. Therefore, we can anticipate that there'll be no single cure. We've got multiple contributing factors. We've got multiple system interactions. And therefore, we need multiple treatment approaches or multiple management approaches. And by the way, in my experience of 20 years and thousands of MS patients, it is never the same thing. Never the same thing. So there's, well, back to the multiple causative agents. So this is Jeffrey Bland is the father of functional medicine, and he's talking about autoimmunity. You know, we're taught that autoimmunity is about our bodies attacking ourselves. Well, the question is always why? Why is the body turning on itself? And I love Jeffrey Bland. If you get a chance to listen to him on YouTube or whatever, he talks a million miles a minute, but he's a brilliant man. In addition to defending against pathogens, the immune system responds to environmental triggers, including food and toxins. And that's a maladaptive process. So this new thinking on autoimmunity is it's not just our body attacking itself. It's literally a maladaptive process. Well, a maladaptive process is a whole lot easier to work on than a broken one. So there's still strong evidence that MS is at least in part an immune-mediated disease. So they're starting to talk outside of the autoimmune box now, right? There is less evidence, however, that MS is a classical autoimmune disease. New science demonstrates that it's never too late to start reversing autoimmunity, no matter how long you've had it. That's the second time you've heard that today. I led with that because that's my experience of the big picture. And here's now Jeffrey Bland, the grandfather of functional medicine, saying that too. The pathogenesis of MS remains elusive, so we don't know what's causing it, with no definitive cause and no definitive cure. And I will put a ... on there, not just because I'm a naturopathic doctor, because I'm also a patient. So if there were a drug out there that I thought was worth it, I would be on that in a heartbeat. But Dr. George Ebers, who is another one for you to look up on YouTube, was the international leading researcher in MS pharmacy for 25 years. He recently retired from that post at Oxford University in England to come out and very benevolently say, he's such a kind and gentle man. You know, this is what I did for 25 years, and this is what we really want to see when we do research. And I did it for 25 years and I've never seen it. So I can confidently say that there is no good pharmacy right now for multiple sclerosis. That's another big one, right? So we've got this whole movement of medicine that's saying we've been looking at it all wrong, and then we've got this other world leading expert saying, yeah, and there's no drugs for it, but we've got good stories to tell nonetheless. Alessio Fasano, I've got a scientist crush on him like crazy. Beautiful, wonderful Italian researcher, and he was the world leading researcher in celiac disease, and then he moved on into non-celiac gluten related illness. And he says this is the three causes of autoimmune conditions. One is a genetic predisposition to autoimmunity, but which honestly I think everybody has at some level. an environmental stressor. And I don't know about you, but most people I talk about can say, oh yeah, that happened after my divorce and or my son died, or I fell off that cliff, or whatever it was. There's usually some trigger and a leaky gut. So the bottom line is, if you've been diagnosed with MS, you don't have a healthy gut. You don't have a healthy microbiome, period. So, there's a secret clue to something that you need to be working on, right? I want to talk a little bit about the new neuroscience, because it's, you know, it really is exciting. I mean, you might think I'm crazy, but this stuff is really, really, really exciting. I've spent a lot of time with neuroscientists. I've spent a lot of time with neurophysiotherapists, and I participated in a neuroplasticity study at the University of Madison in Wisconsin for 13 months. And every minute I could squeeze a little bit of information out of the neuroscientist who ran it, I did. And it just, yeah, it's so inspiring. So basically that body of knowledge of neuroscience has doubled in the last 20 years. That's unheard of in science. Usually it takes 200 years for a body of knowledge of any scientific study to double. This creates endless hope and opportunity for people with multiple sclerosis and any other condition where the brain is involved. So Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, dementia, anything that impacts the brain. Neuroplasticity. So first of all, the word plastic. So we're talking about neuroplasticity. In scientific talk, that just means the ability of something to change. So neuroplasticity means the capacity of the brain to change. And how it does that is by using intentional focus that creates a neuronal state of activation. So the focused, I'll give you an example in a moment, okay? So that focused activity stimulates neuronal activity, and that repeating that activation over time changes the brain so that it actually creates a new trait. How you activate specific circuits can change it actually changes the structure, the physical structure and architecture of the brain. So this could be something as simple as learning a new language. I don't speak Chinese, but guess what I do? If I repeat it enough, my brain creates a new pathway that says, oh yeah, you do, you speak Chinese now. When I participated in the neuroplasticity study down in Madison, it was about mobility in people with advanced MS. And it's just astounding how that intentional focus, so you're focusing on a movement, which means we're not doing any lunge and flops, or we're not being sloppy about any kind of movement. You're being absolutely tuned into the activity, and then repeating that activity actually creates a new pathway for that activity in the brain. It could be, another example would be somebody who, and we all know them, their cup is half empty. Nothing is good anywhere in the world. Well, that is a bad trait, and we're going to see later why that is. And by focusing on catching oneself in that negativity and turning it around, we're actually changing the architecture of the brain. This is just a lovely old quote that I like to use. You can see it's from 1952. While thought itself cannot resurrect dead tissue, this is on neuroplasticity, it can stimulate any remaining tissue to reorganize itself to take on the functions of the damaged tissue. And what do they say? We use about 10% of our brain. Oh my God, there's 90% of real estate to be reorganized into a different way of functioning. And this book by Norman Doidge, if you have not read it, The Brain's Way of Healing, Remarkable Discoveries and Recoveries from the Frontiers of Neuroplasticity by Dr. Norman Deutsch. You need to pick it up or listen to it on Audible or whatever you do. Neuroplasticity is the property of the brain that enables it to change its own structure and functioning in response to activity and mental experience. Oops, there we go. So that neuroplasticity then moves into something called psychoneuroimmunology, or for short, mind-body medicine. And this psychoneuroimmunology, think about those words, just break it down. Psycho, right, our mind, neuro, our brain, immunology, our immune system. Oh, hold on a second. Isn't that MS? An immune system that's affecting the brain. Oh, but now we're introducing psycho, the emotion, into it. So this is the interaction between the psychological processes and the nervous system and the immune system. So what's that mean? Well, we've got some great scientists in the last, since I've been a doctor, easy in the last 20 years, that have shown us in hardcore research that every tissue in your body has a receptor for every thought you think and every emotion you emote. And this becomes especially important in managing the stress response, which has been identified as detrimental to people with MS since MS was first named in the 1840s. So here we go, full circle, talking about how the stress response is going to aggravate symptoms and cause progression of the disease. So this leaves no room for I'm a worrier. You know, like those words make me crazy. Change it. Change that. Stop worrying. And we know through neuroplasticity that you can. And we know that that is part of your healing process if you consider yourself a worrier. Doesn't work for me, right? This is every thought, pattern, and behavior that you have. The moment, so these are, I'm just popping some quotes in here from these researchers. They all have lovely books. Bruce Lipton, cellular biologist, has done so much research in this area. The moment you change your perception is the moment you rewrite the chemistry of your body. Candace Pert, oh my God, she was the female scientist who, as a young woman in the 60s, discovered the morphine receptor in the brain. So the feel-good receptor in the brain. It blew everybody away. This chick, you know, this young chick who found this incredibly significant piece of science, and her research has gone on in this realm to validate all of this stuff. As our feelings change, a mixture of peptides travel throughout your body and your brain, and they're literally changing the chemistry of every cell in your body. Whew. So in review, I just want to bring it home because I know it was a lot of information. The new science is changing the modern understanding of MS. We know it's multifactorial and it requires a multifactorial solution. So it's not what supplement should I be taking? It's not what drug I should be taking. It's about what am I doing? What am I eating? How am I sleeping? What am I exercising? And then what you're supplementing your life with, whatever that choice is. Autoimmune is just speaking to poor adaptation. The mind-body connection controls biochemistry and therefore your symptoms. The new neuroscience has opened the doors to exciting new models for healing the brain. So that's a little summary for you there. Are you guys still with me? Or have I bored you all to tears yet? Good, I see. Okay, good. We see some thumbs up there. Okay. If I do, because I got to tell you, I took this presentation, I cut like 100 slides out of it to give today, and it's probably still 50 slides too long. So if it starts to get boring, just give me some, you know, bring out a pillow and show me that you're bored. So what is MS then? So it's a process, and this is exactly how I explain it every day in my practice. It's a process of inappropriate immune activation. So the immune system is designed to tolerate oneself and get rid of anything that's a threat. So this inappropriate immune activation is confusing that immune system. So And then somehow you and I are wired for that inappropriate immune activation to go to the brain. So this is a process of immune activation and inflammation that plays itself out in the brain and central nervous system. Okay, there's a whole lot that we could talk about, more about process and stuff like that, but we're going to jump to what you're going to do. So all I wanted to, what I was trying to achieve there was to say, we know more than ever about what's going on in the brain. We have more resources than ever, and that's what we're going to dive into right now. And this is what I call the cornerstones for health. And when I think of cornerstones, by definition, cornerstones are stones that hold a foundation in place. And that's what these are. These provide an enduring foundation, just like those pyramids that have been around for thousands of years. These cornerstones for health give you a template that you can come back to when you fall off the wagon, or when you've gone through Christmas and you've eaten all kinds of ridiculous things, or if, like me during COVID, your regular exercise regime has gone out the window. You can come back to these. They can guide your choices. They can support you in weak moments. And they can really be drivers of incredible change in your health. Oops. Okay. So here are the four corners, the four cornerstones. The first one is food, diet, and digestion. And we could talk about that for about a week and a half alone. So today's going to be like the world's quickest tour through food, diet, and digestion. The second one is lifestyle and self-care, because if you're not taking care of yourself, who is? The third one is movement and exercise, because we've come miles from, I don't know if anybody, when I was diagnosed, the advice I was given on exercise was, don't do it. It'll make your MS worse. Well, now we know that that is simply not true. Through the rules and the laws of neuroplasticity, movement begets movement. Actually, that's a physics 101 too. And then mind, body, and spirit. And we've touched on some of these already. So I love this quote. So I thought it fit in here nicely, because, food and self-care and things that we do habitually, we're very attached to those things. And we don't want some crazy naturopath telling us that we need to do them differently. But I want you to think about the fact that in 20 years, a lot of the things you're eating will be illegal. And a lot of lifestyle choices you're struggling with will be taught in elementary school. And we already see this happening. So in Europe, there's a lot of foods that we gobble up here in North America that are illegal. And like soft serve ice cream, like multiple sclerosis, like MSG, they're illegal in other parts of the world, yet our governments keep allowing us to consume them. And as far as lifestyle choices being taught in elementary school, now, at least in the Hamilton board, there's a lot of mindfulness coming into at kindergarten level, which I just find extraordinary, because that's going to serve them for the rest of their lives. So let's take a quick look at, it's not going to be quick, I'm sorry, I'm lying. Let's take a look at food, diet, and digestion. Our first cornerstone. Don't tell me to improve my diet. I ate a carrot once and nothing happened. Well, that's kind of the way we roll in North America, right? We want instant results. I ate that carrot and look at me, I still have MS. It's not that, but it is, there's a lot of resistance to change, especially in the diet. And I love this quote from Colin Campbell, who wrote the book, The China Crisis, which, if you're a reader, that's a great nutritional book to read. He's a PhD nutritional biochemist. And he says the process of eating is perhaps the most intimate encounter we have with our world. It's a process in which what we eat becomes a part of our body. Like, I don't know about you, I mean, but that speaks volumes. You know, it's not about just shoving something down the trap. It's about actually considering the quality of that food and the fact that it's going to become a part of me. And if it's garbage in, garbage out, right? If I'm feeding myself garbage, how can I possibly have any greater expectations of my body? So why diet changes in MS? Well, we know that the foods we eat help to heal a leaky gut and a leaky brain. So I don't know if you've heard those terms before, leaky gut, leaky brain, but the gut has very tight connections in it called tight junctions or gap junctions. And bad food or bad food choices actually cause those junctions to gap. Proteins from our intestines leak back into our system and cause a generalized state of inflammation. And even worse, there's a direct superhighway called the vagus nerve that goes from the gut to the brain. So if that's happening down in the gut, it's happening up in the brain as well. The biggest thing about food is that it can just ratchet the inflammation down in your body, which is directly connected with MS in every way. It provides more nutrients for healthy tissue regeneration, normal metabolic and nerve function. It provides nutrients that are essential for energy production, you know, and contributes to better bowel function. Anybody that I've worked with, anybody in 20 years has always reported a change in their energy once they've started to shift their diet. It's about getting us to give into that new world of eating, right? The GI, so gastrointestinal tract, and the food we put in it are essential in the management of MS. If you haven't already begun to change your diet, then that's great news. You can start today. If you started and fell off the wagon, guess what? You can start today. You can start with the very next bite. Over 70% of our immune system is in the tissues of the gut. So it's really, really important in regulating that inappropriate immune response that we were talking about. And much of MS management happens through the integrity of the gut and the efficacy of digestion and the quality of food we eat. So if you have any digestive issues, gas, bloating, diarrhea, constipation, all of those things need to be corrected because what's playing itself out in your gut. If you've got an unhappy gut, you've got an unhappy blood-brain barrier, and they're directly connected. Oops. Well, there you go. There's some fancy twirls. I didn't know I had those there. So let's start talking about diet then, because it's not news to the MS world. In fact, I just want to show you these examples of doctors who have done research in the field of nutrition and MS. And the first one, Dr. Roy Swank, a board certified neurologist, did his research in the 1940s. And what he came forward with and what he studied was the role of saturated fat. So saturated fat is the fat that we find in meat. So he found that saturated fat caused increased inflammation and an aggravation of MS. Great. Dr. McDougall was a doctor that took the Swank diet and turned it into a vegan diet. Dr. George Jelinek also turned it into a vegan diet. Dr. Ashton Embry, you need to write that name down, Dr. Ashton Embry and his Best Bet diet. His book, The Best Bet Diet, is available for free online. You can download it easy peasy as a PDF. And to me, that's the most balanced anti-inflammatory diet out there. It's actually doable. You know, like some of the diets, like Dr. Teri Walls is the newest diet that has been specific to MS, and she's right. You know, there's nothing wrong with what she's saying. but her diet is very, very heroic. So it involves 12 cups of vegetables a day and organ meat and all kinds of stuff. And I've found many people can have problems with that as get better from it just because they're not used to eating 12 cups of vegetables a day.
I don't know that.
So point here, guess what? This is not new. This is just a little summary of Swank's work. He summarized the conclusions of his studies were basically that about 95% of the people in his studies who ate the low saturated fat diet, so low animal fat diet, remained only mildly disabled for approximately 30 years. And only 5% of these patients died, in contrast to 80% of the patients with early stage MS who consumed the poor diet. You know what? I don't believe that we die of MS. I believe that we die of other things, but the MS could take you there. So those were the words that they used in the 40s when he was reporting. Now, the thing is, nobody ever talks about, regaining. We talk here about remained only mildly disabled. I've seen people change their diet and lifestyle basically in accordance with these 4 cornerstones and get rid of walkers and get rid of canes, so it's pretty serious stuff. Oopsie. And over the years, I've found an individualized approach to diet is the best. And what I use is the combination here, the Best Bet diet, or a basic anti-inflammatory diet. So the Best Bet diet represents what I use as an anti-inflammatory diet. The eliminations of our personal food sensitivities and intolerances, which is something you can have tested. And I've also come to use Dr. D'Adamo's blood type diet. Dr. D'Adamo's blood type diet, it didn't make the other page because it's not just specific to MS, but he correlates different diets with highly beneficial, neutral, or negative foods. And I've just seen it live for so long that I know that it works. So common themes that we want to pull through nutrition: anti-inflammatory, big time, right? So we want to eliminate key problematic proteins that we're going to talk about right now. We want to get lots of whole, fresh foods, no refined or processed foods. And we want to have a good fat balance. So those saturated fats from the animals, we want to reduce that. We want to make that better. So we now know that pasture-raised animals have better fat profiles than commercial, like beef, for example. So if you buy beef in the grocery store, you're getting a piece of meat off of a feed lot. You're not going to have the same quality of meat as a pasture-raised animal. And that's all just in the literature now. We want it to be nutrient dense. I like to think of color. Think of a rainbow, because every one of those colors brings different phytonutrients to you. Okay. And what are phytonutrients? Those are the vitamins, minerals, antioxidants, the things that we don't even know about yet. Okay. So organic, to me, organic and non-GMO is essential. If there's anywhere you want to spend your food budget dollars, it's got to be meat, because if you're eating meat and it's not good quality meat, you might as well be eating cats out of the alley. Seriously. So, and then of course we want to have fiber rich, because that constipation is so prevalent in MS and it's such a problem, right? We know that it aggravates the gut. We know it leads to leaky gut, which means it leads to leaky blood-brain barrier as well. So we want to support the microbiome by enhancing elimination. Digestion and immunity, the integrity of the microbiome in the gut is essential. It houses the majority of the body's immune tissue. If we have poor digestion, the immune response, oh, good grief. Okay, there was nothing on that slide. Oh, there it is. The immune response is constantly activated by large molecules being absorbed through a leaky gut in the small intestine. I should have probably dropped this slide. It's basically just regurgitating what I had already said. Okay. So here are the 3 problematic proteins: gluten, dairy, and legumes. Okay. No bandwidth, no discussion. If you have MS, there's no place for these in your diet. I'm sorry. Don't kill the messenger. It's now what the science has said. I've been telling my patients this for 20 years, but it's now backed by a bucket of science. 2 of the Western world's most popular foods, wheat and dairy, are implicated in various forms of immune-mediated brain damage and dysfunction, including gluten ataxia and multiple sclerosis. Bojdani, another science crush I have, great researcher. And this is all super, super current research. Oopsie. Sorry about that. Gluten avoidance is essential. New England Journal of Medicine linked 57% of all neurological disease with gluten intolerance. And that is actually an old study. I bet you $1 it's more now, because we've got this extensive body of research linking wheat to brain damage, 200 adverse health effects linked to gluten-containing grains, with neurotoxicity at the top of the list. It weakens the structures of the intestines to allow undigested food, undesirable microbes, toxins to leak back into the body. So you're starting to hear these themes repeating themselves. Some people with MS demonstrate exacerbations or, conversely, speedy recovery with the inclusion or exclusion of gluten. So this is a real thing. It's no longer up for debate. So if you are eating bread, if you are eating pasta, cookies, bagels, any kind of that stuff, it's actually contributing to the disease process. This is, I love this picture. This is Alessio Fasano. This is my science crush. I got him in San Diego one year. So and this is the world leader. This is Mr. Smarty Pants. No human can digest gluten now. We can't break down that protein. None of us can. Whether or not it stimulates an immune response is determined by how overwhelmed our immune system is. So whether our immune system is tolerating us or it's not tolerating us. And remember I said MS is about this inappropriate immune activation. So that would be an overwhelmed immune system. Dairy, look at that beautiful, delicious picture. Cheese, milk, yogurt, cottage cheese, ice cream. There's been connections between dairy and MS since the 70s. It's, a 1991 study that shows that dairy acts as a molecular mimic to the vitamin D receptor, which simply means that it blocks the vitamin D receptor, which means your body's not absorbing vitamin D. And what's the single most important vitamin for multiple sclerosis? You said it, vitamin D, right? In 2004, there we go. More immune reaction against dairy. The things that people say, oh, well, I don't have a problem. I don't have diarrhea when I eat. It's not about that. It's about the chronic inflammatory process that's going on because of the whey, because of the lactose, because of the albumin. And all of the latest research is about, not albumin, the casein. So the alpha casein and brain deterioration, especially a lot of the research has been done in Alzheimer's. It's crazy, we can't afford this stuff. And the last one is legumes and lectins. So lectins are actually a protein on legumes. Legumes are a family of beans, peas, that kind of thing. So what we've seen is that these legumes actually cause molecular mimicry or just whip up that immune response, aggravate that immune response. And remember, the immune response plays itself out in the brain with MS. So if we're whipping up that immune response, then we're going to start to feel it. We're going to have numbness and tingling, or we're going to have double vision, or we're going to have more pain, or whatever it is. So the research here, Stephen Gundry has written the book, The Plant Paradox. It's still emerging research, but one way to get rid of the lectins, because they're not easy to get rid of, is to pressure cook them, slow cook them. So if you're a vegan, you need to be considering that, and you may want to reconsider a vegan diet. So the good news is there's lots of good, color heals. I want you to think about that. So think about vegetables. Oh my gosh, it is, the vegetable world is a rainbow of colors, isn't it? Especially in season. So fresh, local, organic in season is the rule of thumb in this house. And I can't wait every year for the farmers markets to start in May. And we shop exclusively in farmers markets until they close at the end of October. So we want omega-3 fatty acids, which reduce inflammation. So that comes in fatty fish. So salmon, mackerel, tuna. Now, of course, yes, we could be here all day if we started talking about the environmental implications. And you're right, fish is not what it once was. So the smaller the fish, the better. And I used to recommend people with MS have fish 3 times a week. I now only recommend it twice a week. Fiber for motility. Well, guess what? I find that if you're eating a good diet with lots of vegetables in it and good fats, you're getting the fiber that you need. And pre and post, sorry, that last, whoopsie. Okay, that last bullet just said pre and probiotic foods. And that's simply fermented foods like sauerkraut, real sauerkraut, not pasteurized sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, those type of things. So in my world, you just can't eat too many vegetables. They're an excellent source of everything we've been talking about. Steaming veggies improves the utilization or availability of the food nutrients. And that just allows, the gut mucosa to heal itself. So we're going to actually use these foods to start healing the gut up too. Okay. Raw veggies, keep those to snacks and salads. And quite honestly, raw food, I like to see eaten at room temperature, not straight out of the refrigerator. So I encourage you to eat a variety of all vegetables. And I have a little to my patients, and that is to eat 50 different foods a week. And while that might sound absolutely crazy right now, it kind of becomes fun, and it's not as hard as you might think. Because think about it, if you've got a good salad, what I call a good kitchen sink salad, which has the greens and it's got some onions in it and it's got some chopped broccoli in it, some cauliflower, and whatever else you throw in your salad, that could be 10 different foods right there in one meal. So kind of something fun, and it might steer you away from, oh, I had broccoli last night, so tonight maybe I'll do something else. Always include something green. When you're doing your meal planning, take a look at what you're planning and always put the green on the plate first. So if you've got fish or you've got chicken or whatever you're eating, what's the green? Is it broccoli? Is it rapini? Is it asparagus? What is the green? And then fill in the colors, right? Remember, those colors bring you all kinds of nutrients. Be creative with fresh herbs. I learned this from a dear friend of mine who is a gourmet chef. And she just would go out to her herb garden and just pick like a colander full of fresh herbs and chop them up and throw them into whatever she was cooking. And I'd say like, oh, what was that? And she said, yeah, well, whatever I just grabbed in the garden. So be creative with your herbs: dill, cilantro, parsley, basil, chives, fennel, mint. You can go on and on. Oops, boy, I've got slippery fingers on this. Now here's the underbelly of the vegetable world, and they're called the nightshades. And the nightshades are pro-inflammatory. And as I approach my 60s, I feel these a lot more. The body's a lot less forgiving than it was in my 20s or 30s. But the nightshade family of vegetables is potatoes, tomatoes, eggplants, and peppers. Those are the most common ones in the North American diet, and they are really inflammatory. And the two big ones I find are tomatoes and potatoes. And maybe because we eat so many of them, I don't know. But those are the ones that I find people who I've worked with over the years have the most problem with too. So what's going on there? It's a chemical reaction that's increasing the inflammation that plays itself out in the joints. Okay. What about fruit? I'm asked about fruit all the time. Because, well, fruit is natural, isn't it? Well, sure it is, but sugar is sugar. And that's the bottom line with fruit. So there's lots of fiber, there's lots of antioxidants, there's lots of color. And so that's what I want you to think about. I want you to think about dark colors, because the darker the fruit, the better it is. So blueberries, blackberries, raspberries, the berries seem to have it, right? They have less sugar, they've got the fiber, they've got the phytonutrients. And the more sugary fruits like bananas and mangoes and all of those kind of things, leave those for a very, very once in a while situation. And, oh, by the way, no more than 1 or 2 portions of fruits a day. Sugar, not so sweet, right? We know that sugar causes oxidative damage to the brain in the form of what's called advanced glycosylated end products, or AGEs, AGEs. They have been found in nerve myelin, these AGEs. So we know that oxidative damage is playing itself out in the myelin, which I would lovingly suggest we want to protect at all cost, right? Sugar also feeds a bad microflora in the gut. Remember how important that gut is. And simple carbohydrates and refined grains behave like sugar in the body. So they're broken down very quickly in the body and they're turned into sugar, and alcohol as well. So we can find alternatives to sweet. Vanilla and cinnamon are good ones. Dates, stevia, coconut sugar is a very low glycemic index. So, and coconut sugar tastes just like, to me anyway, brown sugar, only less sweet. Okay. Hydrate, hydrate, hydrate. What can I say? Nobody drinks enough water. A lot of times with MS, it's because you have to go pee so much, right? So sip, sip, sip all day long. And I've also found that people who actually are better hydrated have less issues with the bladder, because it reduces, having that volume in the bladder actually reduces the spastic activity in the bladder. The brain needs a ton of water during the day. So if you're dehydrated, your brain's not working. And if you suffer from cog fog or bad memory or anything like that, by being dehydrated, you're just aggravating that. Okay. I want you to think about anti-inflammatory herbs. Sure, you can take capsules of everything, and you could also put it in your food. So turmeric, turmeric, turmeric. The research about turmeric in the brain is astounding right now. So think about turmeric, ginger, cinnamon, licorice, marshmallow root, slippery elm. Those are both nice gut ones. Put them in your cooking, use them as teas. You can make something called golden milk that's been made as a nighttime drink in Southeast Asia forever. And it's basically coconut milk. My version of it is a cup of coconut milk, a cup of green tea, a teaspoon of turmeric, cinnamon to taste, and vanilla. That's what I put in mine. And it's a nice little bedtime treat, you know. So the great guidelines, if we can pull this all together in, how am I going to start this right now today, is eat a rainbow. That's the first one. Start with 6 portions and 6 different colors of vegetables every day. So remember, a portion is half a cup raw, or a cup of leafy stuff, you know, like salad or Swiss chard, or something you're going to saute in the frying pan. Start something green with every meal. Remember the 50 food challenge, 50 different foods a week. And try new stuff all the time, because the best way to keep the diversity in the gut, or to keep that gut, remember the gut has between 400 and 2,000 different species of microbes in it. So we want to maintain that diversity. And to maintain that diversity, we need to feed it diversity. So we need to feed it different foods as well. And then lots of different fresh herbs. So fish and fish oil. So now I'm just going to give you my 3 basic supplements. If you don't take any supplements, these are the 3 to take. One of them is fish oil. Well, we've already talked about how anti-inflammatory fish is. That's why we eat it. It's fish oil also helps in the transmission of nerve signals, normal brain development and functioning, and rebuilding and producing new cells and neurotransmitters. It's an easy to digest protein. The fish that we talked about were salmon, mackerel, herring, sardines, and anchovies are also in there. A can of sardines, breakfast of champions. Okay, consume fish oil twice a week and add at least a teaspoon of supplemental fish oil. And I find if people are really inflamed, they can add a tablespoon, and a tablespoon is 3 teaspoons, right? Vitamin D, I've already alluded to the fact that this is probably the simplest and cheapest vitamin that can be that you can be taking with MS. If you do not know your vitamin D status, you need to know. It has been deregulated by our government, which means patient pays. I challenge that I have successfully challenged that with my family doctor by saying, not covered by OHIP. Are you kidding me? Have you seen the research out there about vitamin D and MS? And she caved and covered it. So it's a powerful anti-inflammatory and immune modulator. Good sources of vitamin D include mushrooms, fish, and eggs. And of course, sunshine, right? Get out there in the sunshine between 10 and 2 p.m. The long bones, so your arms, your legs, your face, that's where you want the sunshine. There's actually an app you can get. And I've just used this forever, D-Minder. There's probably other ones too, as there always are. And you basically put in your address where you are, and it will tell you sort of what the weather is and how much vitamin D you're actually going to get from the sunshine. Most neurologists today are recommending 4,000 international units, which I think is brilliant. It's consistent with the research. But if you have a low vitamin D, first of all, the question is why? Oftentimes it's about the status of your gut. The vitamin D is not being absorbed. But you probably need more just to catch up. And then, of course, a probiotic. And this is, probiotics, it's a great area of study, and there's still more questions than there are answers. If you take a probiotic and your GI symptoms, your gas and bloating actually gets worse, then you need to talk to your naturopath. I don't think your doctor would know what to do with it. That tends to mean that the dysbiosis is higher up in the small intestine and requires a different therapeutic approach. But other than that, it's still, I recommend 1 or 2 capsules a day. Personally, I have a bottle sitting right here on my desk. Sometimes I'll take 4 or 5 a day. Like I said, more questions than answers, but definitely good science behind it. Okay. You can also get your prebiotics and probiotics in food. So probiotic foods, as we mentioned, are fermented foods. Prebiotic foods, which basically are the step before probiotic foods, are things like ground flax is a big one. Blueberries are big. Garlic and onions, leeks, asparagus, and sea vegetables. So by sea vegetables, yes, that's secret code for seaweed. So if you want to work them into your diet, okay. So reduce inflammation by avoiding the common allergens, most notably wheat, dairy, and sugar. Like we mentioned, know your unique food sensitivities so you can have those tested. Apply a castor oil pack to your abdomen nightly. We're going to talk about castor oil packs as we get into the self-care, and use a high quality probiotic formula. Include a supportive formula. You know, you can use a formula that's got glutamine or NAG or turmeric or ginger in it as well. Or you can just eat lots of turmeric and ginger as well. Okay, food sensitivities. They actually promote inflammation and immune activation. I think I've talked enough about them that I'm going to jump over that slide. So let's look at some examples of gluten-free meals, because some people say, oh, well, what will I eat? And I just giggle my head off when I hear that, because I think, what is that, all you eat is bread? You know, but gluten-free breakfast might be a protein shake. And there's a beautiful picture of a yummy looking protein shake. You could have a fruit bowl with avocado. So my favorite one with that is kiwi and avocado together with some sunflower seeds, some almond milk. Tastes yummy. You can make coconut yogurt, and there's all kinds of recipes. YouTube or just Google it. There's millions of recipes out there now, you know. And I Google entire sentences. Like the other day, I wanted to make some muffins, and I was feeling like I wanted some morning glory muffins. So I said, delicious, because that's always got to be in that search. Gluten-free paleo muffins. So it's like, you know, it's going to be grain-free if it's paleo, right? Delicious it has to be. And you can just do that. Google the whole sentence. A poached egg, you want to keep eggs down to 1 or 2 a week. And you know what? The best breakfast is leftovers from dinner. I know we're used to the bacon and eggs thing or the starchy disaster breakfasts, but honestly, the best breakfast. I remember when years ago, we all the flight attendants from all the different airlines used to stay in the same hotels. And I remember the Japanese there used to be this Japanese breakfast on the menu all the time. And it was steamed rice and fish and seaweed salad. And I was like, oh, gross. And now, sheesh, sometimes I would just die for that breakfast. Okay, so there's some breakfast ideas, some lunch ideas. Anything you can put between 2 pieces of bread, you can put on a bed of lettuce. So, you know, in this house, we make what we call a kitchen sink salad. I've alluded to it before, with tons of stuff in it. And then we literally take a handful, and you can put sliced chicken on that. You can put sausage on that, chicken sausage on that. You can put fish on that. You can do whatever you want to do with that. You can have, you can have homemade soup. You can use a nori wrap and put chicken and vegetables in it. Once again, steamed veggies and fish, chicken or turkey sausages, leftovers from last night. There come the leftovers again. Let's take a look at gluten-free dinners now. So the guidelines for dinner are just be creative, you know, mix it up, use that 50 different foods per week guideline and take it from there. Oopsie. Sorry. Meal planning by color, always include something green. We've talked about this all before. Inspire yourself on Google. There you go. Some healthy snacks might be a cashew and raisin mix, might be rice crackers or veggies with tahini, might be slices of apples with almond butter. It could be half a cup of blueberries or some chopped veggies. You know, there's lots of options, and there's limitless recipes online as well. So your overall approach to nutrition is going to be low glycemic load, which means low in sugar. So low carb, right? Rich in phytonutrients, lots of color, right? Don't be obsessed with calorie counting. Enjoy frequent regular meals and snacks. Plan lots of veggies, good quality protein and oils. Avoid stimulants like caffeine, refined carbohydrates, i.e. sugar, chocolate, coffee, and alcohol. So have fun doing it. That's all I want you to take away from this slide. Eat mindfully. So slow down, take a deep breath, chew your food. Oh, for heaven's sake, sorry. Okay. I want to talk just a little bit about caloric restriction, which means going for periods of time without eating at all. It's not natural to eat the way we eat in North America. So to constantly be eating and snacking, and you know, the worst possible situation is the bedtime snack. Like, whoever made that up? So intermittent fasting is something that takes care of the bedtime snacking, right? Intermittent fasting is simply not eating anything after dinner for 14 or 16 hours. You can start at 12 hours if you want. If you want to get really serious about reducing inflammation, you might want to do a 1 day or 2 day or 3 day fast. There's also something called the fasting mimicking diet, which provides a real baseline of calories without going into the full fast mode. But be careful if you've got blood sugar issues, because you need to do that under supervision, any fasting, because it can aggravate that. Oops, sorry. Okay.